Hello and welcome to Volume 3 of Pride and Prejudice. Now, I don't know why, but I'm actually feeling nervous entering this new volume because last chapter ended on a very suspenseful question, which is, what if Darcy's home, guys? Somehow that feels way more stressful than I ever thought that it would. And I have to laugh because Elizabeth completely went from, I never, ever want to see that man ever again, to secretly trying to plan out how she won't accidentally bump into him on his own estate. And that is quite the character arc. And can we just appreciate something? You guys have done such an amazing job of helping me understand this whole entire Regency world without spoiling anything. Like, seriously, I feel like now when I'm reading, I'm picking up on little things that I would have completely missed without you guys. So thank you for allowing me to experience this novel as the way Jane Austen wanted it, which is one surprise at a time. All right, now I don't know if we're actually going to meet Darcy. Maybe he's not even there. Maybe Elizabeth is just worrying over nothing. Or maybe this is going to be the most awkward house in all of literary history. Either way, we are headed to Pemberley. Let's go. Let's pack our bags. We are on our way. Let's jump into chapter 43. Let's do this. All right, so chapter 43. We are going to Pemberley. Pemberley we shall go. So let's dive right in. I'm excited. Here we go. So chapter 43. Now Elizabeth, as they drove along, watched for the first appearance of Pemberley Woods with some perturbation. Yeah, who wouldn't be nervous after somebody has given you a marriage proposal and you say no, and then not even no thanks, but definitely no. And now you're going to his estate, huh? Yeah, I would feel a little nervous is an understatement. But we first saw Pemberley Woods, and we're getting nervous, guys, right? And remember, she asked that chambermaid, a third party, to be like, hey, who's the owner of Pemberley? Oh, Darcy? Yeah, okay. Is he going to be here? No? Okay. And that's how we're down to here now. So she's getting a little nervous. And when at length they turned in at the lodge, her spirits were in a high flutter. I mean, probably her heart is like, boom, 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 boom. She is nervous. Okay, so let's just take a deep breath in. We're still in the woods area. We're nowhere near the actual building, I would assume. So, just as long, keep a looking around, make sure Darcy's not popping out of the trees, eh? Right? Remember, because he's like, is Elizabeth here? Is Elizabeth there? So if he's doing that, guys, I mean, this is going to be really hard for her. But we'll see. Now, the park was very large. Yeah, I mean, it's a grand estate. It's Pemberley Park, right? So the park was very large and contained great variety of ground. I mean, I would love to see this. So many probably formal gardens. You got the forest, the garden area, the meadows probably, the water. It's a beautiful, beautiful picture in my mind. They entered it in one of its lowest points and drove for some time through a beautiful wood stretching over a wide extent. So we're just coming in. Now I'm assuming they're entering it in one of its lowest points. So I'm assuming there's going to be, it's an ascent, guys. It's there's a hill or something that we're coming in low, and maybe we got to travel up the grounds here. But we're driving for some time. It's a huge estate, it seems. We're going by carriage, but, they still got to drive and drive and drive. So let's keep it going. Now, Elizabeth's mind was too full for conversation. Yeah, the main thing is she's like, is Darcy going to be here? Is Darcy going to be here? If Darcy's going to be here, is Bingley going to be here? Then I'm going to see Bingley, and then I'm going to think of Jane, and oh my gosh, it's just going to be, then I'm going to go to Darcy again and be like, why did you say that about Jane to Bingley? And it's going to be this whole big thing. So she can't even converse with her aunt and uncle, Mr. and Mrs. Gardiner. Her mind is just too full. But she saw and admired every remarkable spot and point of view. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful estate. So they gradually ascended for half a mile. There we go. So the lowest point they entered in, they have to ascend some type of hill gradually for half a mile. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's pretty big. That's a pretty big amount of length. and then found themselves at the top of a considerable eminence, where the wood ceased. Ooh. And the eye was instantly caught by Pemberley House, situated on the opposite side of the valley, into which the road with some abruptness wound. Okay, so hold up. So it was all wooded, right? We're going up and up and up and up and up. And all of a sudden, once we're at the eminence, right? So I'm assuming eminence is like the highest point. I don't know if somebody is eminent, they have reached like the height of their profession. So maybe they're at a top. Oh yeah, so at the top. Duh, right? So at the top, the wood ceased, so the kind of the forest, the trees have stopped, and now it's a beautiful, clear, from what I'm envisioning, part that you're seeing, and the house. And it's situated on the opposite side of the valley. So it's still where Jane Austen is still trying to say how vast, at least to me, how vast this property is. Opposite side the valley, it's not like cramped or anything, into which the road with some abruptness wound. Into which the road. Maybe the road ended? But that wouldn't make any sense. How are we going to get all the way to Pemberley? We just stopped the wood, right, or the forest. And then now we see this beautiful open landscape from what I'm seeing. There's a valley, then there's Pemberley House. So maybe everything is just coming all together beautifully. But I'm excited. We're getting closer, guys. Here we go. Yes, here's the house. It was a large, handsome stone building. Oh, okay. Standing well on rising ground. So it's even higher. So it's like perched up high. And backed by a ridge of high woody hills. Oh my gosh. And in front, a stream of some natural importance was swelled into greater, but without any artificial appearance. So it seems like Jane Austen is really trying to paint us a picture of just natural beauty. This house, I mean, it's built out of stone. So this house was meant to be here. It's standing high up. It's not trying to take away from the beauty of the landscape, from what I'm assuming here. The house is perched up high with all of the woods in the back. We have the stream of natural importance. So it wasn't like somebody just came and made up a stream and then it swelled into something greater. So maybe like a little bit of a lake, maybe. But even that, no artificial appearance. Everything just looks like nobody even made this house. It looks like it was made, like nature made it. That's how beautifully placed this house is, it seems. Okay, so its banks were neither formal nor falsely adorned. So same type of idea here. It's not gaudy, it seems. It's meant to be here. Elizabeth was delighted. Yeah, I would be just like, we're going here. We're going here. That would be me. I wouldn't be able to contain myself. She had never seen a place for which nature had done more, or where natural beauty had been so little counteracted by any awkward taste. Yeah, this place seems to be it was meant to be here. And going back to what it was supposed to be, they were supposed to go to the lakes. They were supposed to be in the wilderness, in beauty. Mrs. Gardiner tried to make her claim by trying to bring Elizabeth to Pemberley by saying the landscape is truly beautiful. And I mean, she wasn't lying. I think she undersold it, guys. She was not lying. Wickham's dad did a great job because remember, he was part of the groundings. He basically made Pemberley for what it was. So he did a great, great, great job. Wow. If he did all this and now they're just kind of maintaining it, because obviously, unfortunately, he has passed. But yeah, it seems like this house is just supposed to be here naturally. And because we were supposed to go to the lakes, that's what she wanted to be in. She wanted to be in nature. But meanwhile, she's saying over here, she had never seen a place for which nature had done more. So it's not like even she's missing something from the lakes. This is probably even better. natural, or where natural beauty had been so lit or counteracted by an awkward taste. Nothing of this place screams artificial or made or anything like that. It's just a perfect, beautiful spot. And they were, all of them, a warm in their admiration. Yeah, I mean, Mrs. Gardner knew because she grew up around here, right? She spent quite an amount of time in this area. So they are speaking of Elizabeth, Mrs. Gardner, and Mr. Gardner. All of them are just like in awe. I mean, who wouldn't? And at that moment, she felt that to be mistress of Pemberley might be something. Oh, Elizabeth. We were at this way, guys, right? Remember we talked about we're at 90%. Don't go over. Do not go over. Remember the whole thing with Jane and Bingley. Okay, she's kind of forgetting about that part, guys. She said, "Oh, everything with Wickham is all good and everything, so, I'm kind of seeing my life in Darcy's lenses." And now for the first time, at that moment, she felt that to be mistress of Pemberley might be something. Girl, you told him there was never a point that I would even consider yes. And now you're thinking of it. We need to travel back. Round it up. Let's go home. Okay, we saw the estate. We don't have to go inside. We good. Okay. But anyway, she's a thinking now. Okay. But here we go. They descended the hill. Okay, so we were at the high point. Pemberley is even on a hill up, so they're now going down the hill, crossed the bridge, and drove to the door. Ooh, we're at the door, guys. And while examining the nearer aspect of the house, all her apprehension of meeting its owner returned. Yeah, so for a slight instance there, she was like, wow, I really wonder what it would like to be Mrs. Darcy. AKA, she just wants to get outside and just be walking all day. I can't blame her for that. But now, as soon as it's basically becoming real now, I mean, they're at the door. It is real. So all that apprehension has come back and saying, am I going to meet him? I hope we don't meet him. I hope we don't meet him, but let's see. So she dreaded lest the chambermaid had been mistaken. So I'm assuming what's meaning here is she dreaded that maybe that chambermaid that she asked, like as the third party, whether Darcy was going to be here, and the chambermaid said, no, he's not here. Maybe she was mistaken. The chambermaid was mistaken. She's going through it. She hasn't blacked out yet, though, I will say, guys. She isn't like Mariah, all right, when we went to the Collinses, but she's feeling it. So here we go. On applying to see the place, they were admitted into the hall. So now the three of them, the Gardners and Elizabeth, are now entering the hall. We are in the house, guys. Here we go. And Elizabeth, as they waited for the housekeeper, had leisure to wonder at her being where she was. Maybe she's thinking of being the mistress again, guys. But she had some time, because she was waiting for the housekeeper, to wonder at her being where she was. Also, I mean, like, she could just be sitting there, because nobody's really talking to her. She's at leisure, so she's in her thoughts, and she's just looking around. She's like, how did I even end up here, guys? And what would be like to be the mistress of this household? Okay. So she's always thinking deep, guys, internally. But here we go. We're waiting for the housekeeper, and the housekeeper came. A respectable-looking elderly woman, okay, much less fine and more civil than she had any notion of finding her. Okay, so it seems like even the help, right, or the paid help that are at Pemberley House are even still respectable. They're civil. That Elizabeth couldn't even think she had any notion of finding her like that, being very civil. So cute. Okay. Seems like this housekeeper might have been here for a very long time. I mean, she's an elderly woman. Maybe she's been in this house since maybe she was younger. And it's like, you've grown up with this woman. So, oh, that kind of brings something like that. Darcy maybe trusts familiarity and, he doesn't want to kick this housekeeper out if that's the case. But let's keep it going. They followed her into the dining parlor. It was a large, well-proportioned room, handsomely fitted up. I mean, can we not say anything bad about this place? So even the dining parlor was large, well-proportioned, meaning everything was beautifully intact, very symmetrical. Probably the dining table. Kiki, you got this. The dining table is in the middle of the room. Everything is symmetrical around, like the moldings and everything, where the doors are. Wow. Handsomely fitted up. Elizabeth, after slightly surveying it, went to a window to enjoy its prospects. So she's all about the landscape, guys. So she went right to the window to just see outside. What are we even looking at? The hill, crowned with wood. And keep in mind that the wood is kind of on the back of the house, right? So the hill, crowned with wood, from which they had descended, receiving increased abruptness from the distance, was a beautiful object. So here's again with that increased abruptness from the distance, maybe just kind of just like stopping what you can and can't see. But even before that, the wood surrounding it, the hill from which they descended, it was just a beautiful sight to see. There is nothing bad about this house. Everything seems to be well organized, properly placed, and everything just looks like it was meant to be here. But let's keep it going. Now, every disposition of the ground was good, yes, and once again, we have to thank Mr. Wickham, right, his dad. Because if he set it up, then they just have to maintain for what Wickham has done. So every disposition of the grounds around, was good. And she looked on the whole scene, the river, the trees scattered on its banks, and the winding of the valley. Guys, after this, I might just have to book my flight. I mean, come on, right? Does a place like this actually exist? I would think Jane Austen would have a place in mind that she was maybe taking from. So if there is, please let me know. But anyway, so the river, the trees scattered on its banks, and the winding of the valley, as far as she could trace it, with delight. She looked on basically everything. This is such a beautiful scene. She is the happiest of the happiest of the happiest, guys. And as they passed into other rooms, so we went from the dining parlor to somewhere else, the gardeners and Elizabeth with the housekeeper, right? So as they passed into other rooms, these objects were taking different positions, right? Because you have different parts of the house, so you get different types of views from different parts of the house, obviously. But from every window, there were beauties to be seen. My gosh, I would love to see a scene like this. I mean, beautiful, beautiful, especially with any type of day, right? It could even be raining. It would still be beautiful, guys. It could be snowing, right? Anything. But the rooms were lofty and handsome, and their furniture suitable to the fortune of their proprietor. Yeah. So basically it goes back to Darcy. Darcy has a ton of money, so because he has that, the furniture kind of reflects that. The furniture is suitable to how much Darcy has. So that all checks out. That all checks out that they're handsome, beautifully placed, well proportioned. Okay. But Elizabeth saw, with admiration of his taste, that it was neither gaudy nor uselessly fine. Yes. And, it kind of goes to that adage, what is it? Money doesn't buy you taste. This guy clearly got it all, right? Because a lot of people have a lot of money, and if you go on the housing companies and you just search up and then you're like, what? That's me personally. But what were they even thinking? But apparently Darcy's just got it all. He understands architecture, guys. We got to give it to him. So it's not gaudy. It's not uselessly fine. Everything just seems to just fit in place, especially for the time. So Elizabeth is seeing that with less of splendor and more real elegance than the furniture of Rosings. Yeah, so there's a difference between Lady Catherine and Darcy. Lady Catherine is all for show. So, and she wants people to see how much she's got. So she's going to put in the gaudiness of the curtains and this and that, the colors and everything, just to kind of show, like, look what I purchased. But Darcy does it in a much more refined manner, which overall everything just comes together. It's absolutely beautiful to see. So, and that honestly, guys, with architecture and all of that, that takes that skill. I mean, it takes a lot for you to envision something and have everything come into place and just mesh well together. And, I kind of see it with home remodels where it's like, what? This doesn't even go. These two sides that you just did, they don't even go together. What? But hey, who am I to judge, right? But that's what it's basically saying, is that this is real elegance. Once again, I don't think I can say it any better, is that it just is meant to be here, especially for the time period. Rosings, the furniture, is much more gaudy, much more just disjointed, out of place. But she could say, like, oh, look at what I got. So, yeah, let's keep it going. And of this place, thought she, this is Elizabeth, so, and of this place, I might have been mistress. Oh, okay. I would say we're not at 90 anymore, guys. We're like, if it's 0 to 180, right? We're at 90. We're like, okay, we accept him. Now we're like 100, maybe 110. We're over the limit, guys. Okay? I might have been mistress. With these rooms, I might have now been familiarly acquainted. We're just gonna keep it going, guys. There's a couple of words that, I can't say. And it's always these irregularly words. But we can laugh at it together, guys. It's okay. It's all good. Familiarly acquainted. Instead of viewing them as a stranger, I might have rejoiced in them as my own, and welcomed to them as visitors my uncle and aunt. But no. Girl, get out. Get out of that thinking lane. Get out of that thinking lane. Let's start thinking about Jane and Bingley, okay? Remember? Remember that whole side of the story? So, she's thinking it though, instead of viewing this as a stranger, it could have been me welcoming my aunt and uncle. Oof, but no, recollecting herself, that could never be. My uncle and aunt would have been lost to me. I should not have been allowed to invite them. Ah, this was one of the objections, probably, that she's referring to, that because of the status and where Darcy is as opposed to where the Longbourn is, and the family objections and the crazy part of it, I should not have been allowed to invite them. Meaning that this has some context that who makes the decisions, guys? It wouldn't be Elizabeth. It wouldn't be Elizabeth. Once she's married to Darcy, she's thinking that she wouldn't even be able to make that type of decision. I should not have been allowed to invite them. Who do you ask for permission? Don't be asking permission. Just do it. But I know in the Regency era, you gotta, right? You gotta go to the man of the house. So she wouldn't be allowed. Darcy would have probably been like, no. Your family, we have to start separating because they're a little bit ridiculous. But the Gardeners aren't. But they are part of Cheapside area where they do business and trade. So it's all checking out. Now, this was a lucky recollection. It saved her from something like regret. Yeah. So at least something's holding her back, because clearly the Bingley Jane situation ain't holding her back. But I guess she kind of does see that the family is ridiculous. All right. But that was a good recollection because she's might have regretted the choice that she made to say no to Darcy. So family, I mean, she so wants to chill with the Gardeners, so let's keep it going. She longed to inquire of the housekeeper whether her master was really absent but had not courage for it. Yeah, and, keep in mind that the housekeeper is probably showing them from room to room. So at any point in time, maybe she could have just said, "Oh, is the master of the house here?" And she would have just said, "Oh, yeah," or "Oh, no." But she doesn't have the courage for it, which is interesting because usually our Lizzie is very courageous. Just like what we've seen, she spoke up to her father about Lydia and Kitty and what their futures might be like if you don't meddle with it. But for here, just asking a simple question, she's got no courage for it. Interesting. Now, at length, however, the question was asked by her uncle. We're going to know it. We're going to know it, guys. So Mr. Gardner came through and was like, "Oh, is Darcy here?" And she turned away with alarm, while Mrs. Reynolds replied that he was... Wait, hold on. Was he absent or was he here? Hold on, Kiki, before you explode. Okay? Before you explode into outer space. Okay, so she inquired whether her master was absent. So is Darcy not here? She didn't have the courage. That question was asked by her uncle, whether he was absent. And Mrs. Reynolds replies that he was. So he's not here, guys. Whew, guys, I almost just blew into outer space. Like, okay, calm it down. And I'm assuming Mrs. Reynolds is the housekeeper name. Tracking. Here we go. So Mrs. Reynolds replied that he was absent, adding, "But we expect him tomorrow." "We expect him tomorrow with a large party of friends." Yo, Bingley's coming back. And Bingley's sisters with probably Mr. Hurst, who probably lost his house from gambling. Oh my gosh. Who other friends are there, guys? I mean, friends, it would have to be Bingley's two sisters, Mr. Hurst. Maybe some other people that we don't know. Oh gosh, how rejoiced was Elizabeth that their own journey had not by any circumstance been delayed a day. But there's an assumption here because we're assuming that we're just seeing this house for one day. I don't know. We've been seeing the whole book, guys, that once you're at some place, you're there for quite some time. So, what would be different? We arrive at Pemberley. I don't think we're going to be staying for one day, but Elizabeth sure seems to. How rejoiced was she that the journey hasn't been delayed by a day? Because delayed by a day, she would have seen him. And she thinks that we're just going to leave in a day? I mean, I haven't been seeing that this whole book, but let's see. Her aunt now called her to look at a picture. Ooh, maybe like a painting or something? She approached and saw the likeness of Mr. Wickham. I'm assuming this is Mr. Wickham Sr., right? George Wickham's dad. So maybe it's not a painting. Maybe it's a photograph. Did we have photographs back then 200 years ago? I think maybe like some type of old-fashioned type ofograph type of thing. So her aunt now called her to look at a picture, and she approached and saw the likeness of Mr. Wickham suspended amongst several other miniatures. Okay, so there was some technology, I would assume, but if there wasn't, thank you so much, because I know you guys would always let me know. You guys are the best, honestly. So we have several other miniatures over the mantelpiece. Ooh, okay. Her aunt asked her, smilingly, how she liked it. How she liked what? I guess Pemberley, overall. I don't think she's asking about the picture, right? Because she would have said, how did you think of him or something? So her aunt asked her smilingly how she liked it. And the housekeeper came forward and told them it was the picture of a young gentleman, the son of her late master's steward. So this is George Wickham, not Mr. Wickham Sr. This is George Wickham in the house. God, what What is he even doing in this house? It should be not on top of the mantelpiece. It should be in the mantelpiece, right? It should be in the fire. But I guess because Darcy hasn't been here in quite a while. I mean, he's now at London, he was in Netherfield Park, so maybe he hasn't been here for quite some time. So the housekeeper came and told them it was the picture of a young gentleman, the son of her late master's steward, who had been brought up by him at his own expense. That story checks out. He is now gone into the army, she added, but I am afraid he has turned out very wild. So even she knows. She knows the story. So that even checks out. The housekeeper is even making checks for George Wickham. This is crazy. But even if the proposal never happened, right? If that never happened, we now ended up with Pemberley. And Elizabeth still thought of Wickham as she used to in great spirits. Now the housekeeper is coming and, oh, he's in the army, but I'm afraid he has turned out very wild. Maybe Elizabeth would have had the courage to say, what do you mean by that? Right? So, interesting. But let's keep it going. But we know that we don't have to ask her. We don't have to ask her because we know. So Mrs. Gardiner looked at her niece with a smile. Yeah, but Elizabeth could not return it. Mrs. Gardiner only knows what they talked about with how he's been wild looking for money, right? And how he just can't provide a lifestyle for Elizabeth. But Elizabeth, now knowing even more of the story, she can't return the smile from what I'm seeing here. And that, said Mrs. Reynolds, pointing to another of the miniatures, is my master, and very like him. It was drawn at the same time as the other, about 8 years ago. Oh, so hold on. So this is Darcy. Okay. And it's a painting. It was drawn. So there was no photographs back then, it seems. I would think maybe, what are we, like 1800s, early 1800s? Maybe the photograph came out in like early 1900s, maybe? So now she's pointing to my master, who is Darcy. It's drawn at the same time as the other, as George Wickham, about 8 years ago. So he's, maybe late teens, early 20s, maybe? Because I know George Wickham is, I believe, 27. So he would be just, younger, 8 years younger. And Mrs. Gardiner says, I have heard much of your master's fine person, said Mrs. Gardiner, looking at the picture. It is a handsome face, but, Lizzie, you can tell us whether it is like or not. Mrs. Gardiner just keeps putting Elizabeth in the spotlight. I mean, because she doesn't know. She doesn't know the real story. So she's looking at the picture and she's like, ooh, this guy's handsome, but Lizzie, what do you think? I mean, you've been with him, you've talked to him, what do you think? I mean, granted, this is 8 years ago, but what is Lizzie going to say? I mean, we all know what Lizzie has been. They've danced together, they've argued together, they've been through a proposal together, but Mrs. Gardiner doesn't really know all that, right? So, I mean, poor Lizzie. She's constantly getting thrown in this line of fire. But here we go. Mrs. Reynolds' respect for Elizabeth seemed to increase on this intimation of her knowing her master, right? Because if Darcy is around people that via him gives off great respect. So if Darcy is talking to somebody, that already puts you in a way better bracket than anybody else that he would kind of just like put on the sideline. So because of that, because Mrs. Reynolds probably knows Darcy's, super pridefulness, but just a general overall good dude underneath. So she clocks that in immediately. And she says, does that young lady know Mr. Darcy? And Elizabeth colored. She's going red. Guys, how much time has she been going red now? I mean, she's just going red all the time. She colored and said, a little. Lizzie, really? A little? I mean, yeah, we can't really give it away, but yeah, I mean, I know him. A little? Okay. And do not you think him a very handsome gentleman man? Yes, very handsome. Oh no. Oh no, we're at maybe 110, now we're at like 115, guys. This is not good. Mm-mm-mm. Ah, okay. All right. Now, I'm trying to remember. Did she think that he was handsome? I don't think so. I don't think that was said. Right? I mean, from the tolerable comment, I don't remember her saying anything like that. But now, apparently, he is very handsome indeed. And I am sure I know none so handsome. But in the gallery upstairs you will see a finer, larger picture of him than this. Gosh. I mean, she knows, right? Mrs. Reynolds, she knows he's single, right? She's probably looking at Elizabeth. She doesn't really know who Elizabeth's background is, but she's looking at Elizabeth and like, ooh, maybe these two could get together. So she's like, okay, don't worry about this picture. Go upstairs, girl. Go upstairs. There's a finer, larger picture of him than this that you could goo goo gaga all over. This room was my late master's favourite room. That's Darcy's dad. And these miniatures are just as they used to be then. He was very fond of them. Oh, I mean, it seems like, yeah, because she's an older woman and she's still working for him. That just speaks volumes because you've seen a lot. You've been with this family, I'm assuming, but she is an older woman that you've seen a lot throughout the years if you've been with them since the get. And from it is now, it does make sense because she's like, this room was my late master. So she's even been with them since that. And because she's an older woman and she's still here, that says a lot about their character, I would say. So just clocking all these like little individual things in here. So yes. So the gallery upstairs, there's a finer, larger picture of him, of Darcy, than this one. And this room, meaning I'm assuming the one that they're in right now, was Darcy's dad's favorite room with the fireplace. And these miniatures are just as they used to be then. Oh. And this accounted to Elizabeth for Mr. Wickham's being among them. Yeah, because that was his favorite. Unfortunately, Darcy's dad's favorite wasn't Darcy, it was George Wickham. And he put him through school, and we all know the story, but I mean, yeah, sour taste in my mouth. Now, Mrs. Reynolds then directed their attention to one of Miss Darcy, Georgiana, drawn when she was only 8 years old. So, yeah, once again, maybe 8 years ago as well, because now she's 15, 16-ish. So, so she's now really a child. And Mr. Gardner says, maybe I'll do the glasses for this. Mr. Gardner says, and is Miss Darcy as handsome as her brother? Said Mr. Gardner. Okay. So let's see. I guess this is Mrs. Reynolds. She says, oh, yes, the handsomest young lady that ever was seen, and so accomplished. She plays and sings all day long. In the next room is a new instrument just come down for her, a present from my master. Oh, she comes here tomorrow with him. Oh, so that's part of the party too, Georgiana. Well, that kind of makes sense because he is going to make sure that he sees Georgiana as much as he can after what happened with Wickham, because it's still pretty fresh, guys. And he bought her a new instrument because he knows that she loves to play. She was playing the harp, right, from what Miss Bingley was talking about. So she's very well accomplished. She plays and sings all day long as to what an accomplished woman should do. And Darcy bought her a new instrument. Oh, and she comes here tomorrow. Guys, we might have a first conversation. We might finally meet Georgiana. But let's see. Now, Mr. Gardner, whose manners were easy and pleasant, encouraged her communicativeness by his questions and remarks. Yeah, okay. So he just kind of kept talking, it seems. So they were having a good back and forth conversation about the house, maybe, about Darcy, etc. And Mrs. Reynolds, either from pride or attachment, had evidently great pleasure in talking of her master and his sister. Yeah, just like we said, it's a thing to see when you have an older housekeeper who's been there throughout the whole entire time, throughout the years. So either from her pride or her attachment to the family, she was giving back communication with Mr. Gardner. Okay. And Mr. Gardner says, "Is your master much at Pemberley in the course of the year?" So basically, does Darcy come around all the time? And Mrs. Reynolds says, "No, not so much as I could wish, sir. But I dare say he must spend half his time here, and Miss Darcy is always down for the summer months." Ah, so Georgiana only comes down for the summer, and it is summertime. We are in June. So actually, we are, I think, in July now, right? Or maybe Mr. Gardner had to go back to London in July for work. But either still, we're in summer, guys, June, July. But clearly we've seen that Darcy isn't at Pemberley a lot. And that's what Mrs. Reynolds says, not as much as I could wish. But I dare say he spends half his time here. So maybe winter time with Bingley, wherever, London, wherever. And then I would assume that he comes for the summer because that's where Georgiana is. So that kind of checks. Let's keep it going. Except, thought Elizabeth, when she goes to Ramsgate. Oh, yes. So that was the whole debacle with Wickham, where he was coming to see her at Ramsgate and tried to elope. But Elizabeth thought this, right? Because she knows things that the Gardners don't know, and she's probably going to keep it that way. So she was thinking that. Now let's see. I think this is now Mr. Gardner again. So he says, "If your master would marry, you might see more of him." How ironic, guys. I mean, right? So maybe if he was married, he would settle down more at Pemberley. And Mrs. Reynolds says, "Yes, sir, but I do not know when that will be." Could have happened. "I do not know who is good enough for him." But this kind of brings a couple of things because obviously Elizabeth is good enough for him. Second, no mention of Rosings and, Lady Catherine de Bourgh's daughter and the coming together of the two estates. Nothing about that. So either she doesn't know about that or she just is going to push that off to the side because she doesn't know who's good enough for him. And Mr. and Mrs. Gardner smiled. And Elizabeth could not help saying, she opened her mouth. What is she going to say? "It is very much to his credit. I am sure that you should think so." Wow, so she just came right out and basically said, okay, it's very much to his credit that you should think so. Because she's the housekeeper. Just like we've said, if you're staying in the house for decades and decades being the housekeeper, that says a lot about the family. That says a lot about who they really are. And it's very much to his credit for you to think so. Because what is Mrs. Reynolds got to lose? She's the housekeeper of the house. So kind of just, and she's doubling down and saying, I'm sure. So yeah, I mean, she doesn't, and she's not saying, of course she's not saying that, oh, he asked me. He actually proposed to me. That would be wild. Can you imagine that? But we still got lenses on, Darcy lenses, but let's continue on. So this is who? Replied the other, so it's gotta be Mrs. Reynolds. "I say no more than the truth, and what everybody will say that knows him," replied the other. Yeah, because he is a straight shooter, and Elizabeth now knows that. Elizabeth knows his character. And Elizabeth thought this was going pretty far. And she listened with increasing astonishment as the housekeeper added, "I have never had a cross word from him in my life, and I have known him ever since he was 4 years old." Yes, exactly what we've been saying, guys. It says a lot. She has a lot of history. And she's been with them day in, day out. So she really, truly does know Darcy's character. She ain't coming out here saying he's terrible, he's horrible. No, I mean, just what she just said here. I have never had a cross word from him in my life. So he's very respectable, doesn't raise his voice, isn't mean or demeaning at all. You know, he is prideful, but he is very respectable. And she has known him ever since he was 4 years old. So we're going back years, decades maybe, right? Well, definitely decades, more than 10 years. So let's continue going. Now, this was praise of all others most extraordinary, most opposite to her ideas, probably from what she was thinking about him since the beginning of the novel, guys. But now we have a housekeeper of, 10 plus years saying that he's a straight shooter. He is who he is. He is a respectable kind of guy. And this was praise of almost most extraordinary. That he was not a good-tempered man had been her firmest opinion. Yeah, first impressions, guys, right? First impressions was that he was not a good-tempered man. We're going all the way back to the tolerable comment. But it's showing differently. Her keenest attention was awakened. She longed to hear more. Oh, girl, and was grateful to her uncle for saying. So she's just listening in. And keep in mind, Mr. Gardner and the housekeeper are kind of going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And sometimes, if Elizabeth can't help herself, she's just going to blurt something out. But Mr. Gardner goes, "There are very few people of whom so much can be said. You are lucky in having such a master." Yeah, I mean, it. And what's her reasoning for lying? What is the saying, guys? The piece is in the pudding, the pie's in the pudding, something's in the pudding. I have no idea. But she's been saying there for so long. With not a bad word to say, you're lucky in having such a master. There's few people that you could say this towards. I agree. I'm with it. Let's see. Yes, I know I am. Right? Lucky, basically. If I were to go through the world, I could not meet with a better. Yeah, a better family, a better, not worker, but boss, I guess, for lack of a better term. So she couldn't go throughout the world meeting anyone better. But I have always observed that they who are good-natured when children are good-natured when they grow up. Yes, so... And this kind of goes back to Lydia and Kitty and what Elizabeth was trying to say. That, they're kids, now it's getting harder to change them. And Mrs. Reynolds is kind of saying the same thing, that whoever is good-natured as a child is going to turn out good-natured as an adult, because that's now their ingrained personality, and their ethics and morals are kind of like solidified in stone. And he was always the sweetest-tempered, most generous-hearted boy in the world. Now, this is interesting because of the history between George Wickham and Darcy, and how even still, Darcy's father chose Wickham. Darcy seemed to still be the sweetest-tempered, the most generous-hearted young boy in the world, even though he wasn't receiving, probably, the attention that he wanted from his father. Oh, this is cute. And once again, why would Mrs. Reynolds lie? She has no reason to lie. So, he's now the sweetest-tempered, most generous-hearted boy in the world, and because he's like that as a child, that's who he is as an adult. Now, Elizabeth almost stared at her. Can this be Mr. Darcy? Thought she. She can't believe it. She cannot believe it after everything that went down. And Mrs. Gardner says, "Well, his father was an excellent man," said Mrs. Gardner. Even though we know that Wickham was his main son, his godson, who he took more care of. Interesting. Well, let's continue on. His father was an excellent man. Okay. And Mrs. Reynolds comes back and says, "Yes, ma'am, that he was indeed." and his son will be just like him, just as affable to the poor. This is alluding towards the Wickham family, I'm assuming, as to, just as affable to the poor, treating Mr. Wickham and sending his kid off, George Wickham, to school because Mr. Wickham Sr. couldn't afford it. And just like what we've been talking about, guys, is that not that Bingley is poor in any sense. Bingley has a lot of money, but not as high on the social status, not part of the landed gentry. So he is friends with him, great friends with him. So that also speaks volumes as well as to Darcy's character. Now, Elizabeth listened, wondered, doubted, and was impatient for more. She's short-circuiting. She's short-circuiting, guys. She's like, what? Yeah. And Mrs. Reynolds could interest her on no other point. Nothing more could be said. They kind of got to the end of that. She related the subjects of the pictures, the dimensions of the rooms, and the price of the furniture in vain. So it seems like Mrs. Reynolds has enough about talking about the family, which, respectfully so, right? I mean, we've just seen these people, the Gardiners plus Elizabeth, and Mrs. Reynolds is going to say her formalities, right? But then that's it. Like, you don't get to know any more information. Meanwhile, Elizabeth wants to know more information. But no, Mrs. Reynolds knows her place. She knows what to, divulge and to not talk about. And now she's going to change the point where she's talking about the pictures, the dimensions of the room, the price of the furniture. But Elizabeth wants more information. And Mr. Gardiner, highly amused by the kind of family prejudice to which he attributed her excessive commendation of her master, soon led again to the subject. Okay, so yeah, he thinks that this is prejudice from Mrs. Reynolds' perspective. He's highly amused by the kind of family prejudice to which he attributed her excess, admirations and accolades and everything that she's been talking great about the Darcys, especially of Mr. Darcy. So he is trying to soon lead again on the subject. And she dwelt with energy on his many merits as they proceeded together up the great staircase. So once again, very civil it seems. So his merits, what he has done in his life. And now they're going up the staircase. Interesting. Okay. He is the best landlord and the best master, said she, that ever lived. Now, this is actually interesting because now I'm thinking about it. Elizabeth wondered and doubted and everything, but she's just going, Mrs. Reynolds is going on and on and on. Now, I wonder why she changed the subject, because Mr. Gardiner asked, or maybe Elizabeth didn't even ask at all. She was wondering, thinking about, but then as soon as, I think that might be the case, as soon as Mr. Gardiner asked again, then she came back. And Elizabeth's like, yeah, tell me more, tell me more. So he is the best landlord and the best master, said she, that ever lived. Not like the wild young men nowadays who think of nothing but themselves. Who's that? He already said somebody was wild, just saying. But there is not one of his tenants or servants but what will give him a good name. Yes, because he rents out probably Pemberley, part of Pemberley estate. He probably rents out to tenants. He's got servants, and everybody isn't going to give him a bad name. Everybody's going to give him a good name. Some people call him proud. That we know of, but I am sure I never saw anything of it. To my fancy, it is only because he does not rattle away like other young men. We know that he's more reserved. We know that he's more reserved, and because of that, he comes off as more aloof, right? That he doesn't want to talk to someone. So from someone else's perspective, if somebody's coming off as aloof, they might attach pride to their personality because that they don't want to talk to anybody else, as opposed to Wickham, who could talk to a doorknob for all we know. Just as long as the door's moving, he's going to be talking. But just Two totally different people. But once again, she's backing him up, you know? Some people call him proud, but I'm sure I never saw anything of it. It's just because he doesn't rattle away like other young men, like Wickham does. Okay, all right. She's putting in the work, Mrs. Reynolds. Here we go. Another thought from Elizabeth says, "In what an amiable light does this place him?" thought Elizabeth. Oh, gosh. Yeah, like this dude is super friendly. What an amiable light does this place him? Mrs. Reynolds is doing his work. So now Mrs. Gardiner comes in and says, "This fine account of him," whispered her aunt as they walked, "is not quite consistent with his behavior to our poor friend." Is this talking about Wickham? Yeah, because keep in mind, once again, she doesn't know the proposal. She doesn't know about the letter. So all she knows is what Elizabeth told her about how, you know, they kind of go back and forth and how he treats Wickham unkindly. So that's what Mrs. Gardiner is coming back at Elizabeth and saying, this account is not consistent with his behavior to our poor friend. Meanwhile, she has no idea about the whole Georgiana thing. So Elizabeth just comes in and says, "Perhaps we might be deceived. First impressions might not always be right." And Mrs. Gardiner comes back and says, "That is not very likely. Our authority was too good." So Mrs. Gardiner is like, this might not be likely because our authority is just too good. I think she might be referring to Mrs. Reynolds. Because once again, Mrs. Reynolds has nothing to lose, nothing to gain. She's the housekeeper. So, and she's been there for quite a while, which says a lot. So maybe she's saying, like, I don't think so. That authority, the housekeeper, Mrs. Reynolds, is just too honest account, I would say, because that's what she whispered. This fine account of him is not quite consistent with his behavior. And Elizabeth says, well, maybe we might have been deceived, but maybe not. Our authority's too good. But let's continue going. Now, on reaching the spacious lobby above, they were shown into a very pretty sitting room. Ooh. Lately fitted up with greater elegance and lightness than the apartments below. Interesting. Okay, but once again, everything is put in place perfectly. Everything has a place, well-dimensioned, elegance, and it just seems like it's supposed to be there. And we're informed that it was but just done to give pleasure to Miss Darcy, who had taken a liking to the room when last at Pemberley. Oh, so it seems like, who would make the decisions as to who would redo a room? It would totally be Darcy. So Georgiana liked the room. Darcy found out about it and just redone it for his sister. All of these are little, drops to show his true character, especially to the ones that he loves, especially to his sister. Like, he will bend himself over backwards just to make sure that, one, she's okay, two, that she feels loved, and, is just trying to be the best brother that he possibly can. Oh, cute. Let's keep it going, though. "He is certainly a good brother." "Yeah, just what we said, guys," said Elizabeth, as she walked towards one of the windows. This girl, she's like a magnet to a window. She just wants to see that landscape, and every time that she's there, she's like, "Wonder if what would happen if I would have said yes." Girl, stay away from those windows. Now, Mrs. Reynolds anticipated Miss Darcy's delight when she should enter the room. Yeah, she's going to be so excited. Maybe she doesn't know this is going to happen, and Darcy just kind of redid it. "And this is always the way with him," she added. "Whatever can give his sister any pleasure is sure to be done in a moment. There is nothing he would not do for her." And this also checks out. Yo, Mrs. Reynolds is doing the work. And because of that, Elizabeth is going from the 90 to the 110 to the 115. Now she's at 120. Remember, the full 180 turn. But, I mean, it's getting closer. It's getting closer. And unbeknownst to Mrs. Reynolds, she has no idea what she's really doing. And Elizabeth is just kind of like soaking it all in. So, but this also checks out. This is the truth. So it kind of goes back to the letter as well. But let's keep it going. Now, the picture gallery and 2 or 3 of the principal bedrooms were all that remained to be shown. In the former, so that's the front, so the picture gallery, I'm assuming. So in the former were many good paintings. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he collects. But Elizabeth knew nothing of the art. Right. This might actually be maybe the difference with social status, but maybe, from what I'm learning from you guys, maybe this has to deal with everything about having a governess and not having a governess. Maybe if she would have had a governess, she would have known about these paintings or just art in general. But because Mr. Bennet, screwed that up, she knew nothing of the art. And from such as had been already visible below, she had willingly turned to look at some drawings of Miss Darcy's in crayons, whose subject were usually more interesting and also more intelligible. Cute! So hold on. First off, the thing I'm seeing is crayons. Is this crayons TM? Because this is lowercase crayon. Was that company in the 1800s? I would... Or was crayon TM, right, or R, registered, whatever, because of the wording? Interesting to think about. But anyway, Miss Darcy draws. And her subjects, whatever she was drawing, some drawings of Miss Darcy's. So I'm assuming of what she drew, whose subjects were usually more interesting and also more intelligible, meaning maybe she could... it's not as abstract, maybe, I could assume. But, I mean, Elizabeth is loving literally every second of this vacation in Pemberley. She's probably like, I'm so glad I didn't even go to the lakes at this point, because she's learning a lot, she's seeing a lot, and she's thinking a lot, guys. So, anything else? She's just looking at the art, and yeah, she willingly turned to look at some drawings of Georgiana's. Okay. Cute. Let's keep it going. Now, in the gallery, there were many family portraits, yeah, but they could have little to fix the attention of a stranger. And Elizabeth walked on in quest of the only face whose features would be known to her. And at last, it arrested her, so it kind of like halted her. And she beheld a striking resemblance of Mr. Darcy, with such a smile over the face as she remembered to have sometimes seen when he looked at her. Oh, okay. So hold on. There was something about a stranger, but they could have little to fix the attention of a stranger. Now, she's seen Darcy before. She's seen Wickham before. Are we talking about Mr. Darcy's dad as the stranger? Because then it says, Elizabeth walked on in quest of the only face whose features would be known to her. Guys, it just clicked. Elizabeth walked on in quest of the only face whose features would be known to her? Whose would that be? Yeah. Darcy. At last it arrested her. And she beheld a striking resemblance of Mr. Darcy, with such a smile over the face as she remembered to have sometimes seen when he looked at her. What? So she's in this gallery, and she's probably with, Mr. and Mrs. Gardner, but she's in this gallery. They're looking at some random paintings, right? And she's out searching for who? Yeah. Darcy. Okay, what number are we at, guys? Right? What number are we at? We at like 125 now? Are we at 125 to reach the full 180 turnaround from 0 to 180? Girl, maybe even 130. I don't know what's going on here. This is not good. He's not even here. But let's see. Now, she found the painting. It arrested her. And she saw the smile over his face, which she remembered that he had when he looked at her. Oh my God. I mean, half of me just wants to like swoon over this moment because this is cute. But the other half of me is like, Elizabeth, what are you doing? What are you doing? We're supposed to move on. But I don't know. She's going down. She's looking out those windows and she's going downhill with the hills that are at Pemberley. She's rolling downhill, guys. But let's see. She stood several minutes before the picture. Okay. Okay. What would be, like, this would be totally cinematic Hollywood romance, is she's looking at these paintings and there he comes behind her and she has no idea that he's there. And then when she turns around, there he is. Like, what cinematic universe would that be? Yeah, I can totally see that happening. But let's see. She stood several minutes before the painting, just like, in earnest contemplation, and returned to it again before they quitted the gallery. Girl, guys, we're not in the 30s anymore. We're in the 40s. 140 out of 180. What is going on here? This dude isn't even here. Mrs. Reynolds was doing work, and she didn't even know she was doing it. Now we're staring at pictures, staring at the smiles. Oof. So she returned to it again before they quitted the gallery, and Mrs. Reynolds informed them that it had been taken in his father's lifetime. Oh, so Daddy was around. Daddy didn't unfortunately pass at that time, and he was smiling. So that kind of even gives even more information as to he was actually a very kind-hearted, sweet child as well. And because that's what Mrs. Reynolds said, right? And he wasn't irritable or maybe as jealous as it was thought to be. But he's smiling in the picture. So, oh boy. Guys, where are we headed here? Okay. There was certainly, at this moment, in Elizabeth's mind, a more gentle sensation towards the original than she had ever felt in the height of their acquaintance. Okay, what's that gentle sensation, huh, Lizzie? What's that gentle sensation towards the original than she had ever felt in the height of their acquaintance? What's the height, right? What's the height? I mean, the height of the height would be, in terms of like climax type of situation over here, would be the proposal. But, I mean, they met many times before. Netherfield, right? At Rosings, whatever happened at Rosings, Meryton, the dance that they had. And now, a more gentle sensation towards the original. Now, original, I don't know. I mean, the original than she had ever felt. I mean, clearly we're talking about Darcy. Like, we're not looking at the painting, and we're when she's looking at the painting, she's envisioning Darcy himself. I don't know if that translates towards the original. I mean, he's the OG, guys. That's Darcy. But it's in the 40s, 140, guys. The commendation bestowed on him by Mrs. Reynolds was of no trifling nature, just like we were saying, guys. Just like we were saying. This girl, well, this woman, was doing the work. Unbeknownst to what, she had no idea, but she put in the work for Darcy. So, yeah. What praise is more valuable than the praise of an intelligent servant, just like we have been saying? Guys, as a brother, a landlord, a master, she considered how many people's happiness were in his guardianship. I mean, true. As a brother, for Kiki, Georgiana. That was a huge short circuit. I had to put the plug back in there, guys. But as a brother, a landlord, a master, yeah, I mean, everything's just coming together for this guy. And he's just chilling away. He doesn't even know any of this is happening. Too bad, though. Too bad it happened too late. That's all I'm saying. Too bad it happened too late. Because if she's now looking at paintings, he's smiling, and she's thinking of, these gentle sensations, and then the proposal happened, I think we would be at a different point in the story, guys. I mean, that wouldn't have happened. All that stuff. But let's see. How much of pleasure or pain it was in his power to bestow. Yeah, I mean, he could be the evilest of the evils, but he's not, right? He's making sure that everybody's taken care for, everybody's happy, especially Georgiana. He has a lot of power, and he could do whichever way he wants. How much of good or evil must be done by him? Yeah. Yeah. Every idea that had been brought forward by the housekeeper was favorable to his character. Check. And as she stood before the canvas, the painting, we're still looking at the painting, guys. Still. This is not several minutes. She's looking at the painting for like at least 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I mean, so as she stood before the canvas on which he was represented and fixed his eyes upon herself, she thought of his regard with a deeper sentiment of gratitude than it had ever raised before. Guys, we're at like 145 now. And I love how Jane Austen says, and fixed his eyes upon herself, not her eyes upon him. So he's looking into her soul. I mean, he's looking straight at, whoever's painting in direct POV, point of view. So he's looking into her soul, and she feels it from a painting, guys. I mean, kudos to the painter. Kudos to the painter. So, yeah, she thought of her regard with a deeper sentiment of gratitude than had ever raised before. She remembered its warmth and softened its impropriety of expression. So, impropriety is like not best behavior, right? Propriety is like the etiquette that you're supposed to have. Impropriety is like bad etiquette. Softened its impropriety of expression because we know that Darcy, doesn't come off as very affable or amiable towards people that he doesn't know. So much more aloof. But now it's getting all softened, guys. The butter is getting warmed up and it's getting softened. Ooh, all right. Let's continue on. When all the house that was open to general inspection had been seen, they returned downstairs. Now, so hold on, because I've been to, where's that, Newport, Rhode Island, that has a lot of the mansions. And I remember my family took us there one time, when I was young, early teens, because just like I mentioned before, is that I'm like obsessed with architecture and homes, and I actually did want to be an architect when I was growing up. But that turned out great. But But I always wanted to know, like, why can't we see the whole of the house? Like the breakers. Why can't I see the whole of the breakers? Maybe because they still rent out some of the property. Hmm. This is bringing it back. So when all of the house that was open to general inspection had been seen, because for Pemberley, they have the servants' quarters, they got the tenants, so, checks out. They returned downstairs and, taking leave of the housekeeper, were consigned over to the gardener who met them at the hall door. So, we are only going to be here for a day, guys. Okay. And I hate to see Mrs. Reynolds leave. She was great, but she's, part of the house. She brought them over to the gardener, who now they're going to be taken out of the house into the grounds and probably back in their carriage, and away they go. So as they walked across the lawn towards the river, so they're out of the house, guys. Goodbye, Pemberley. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Jane Austen did a great, great, great job of provoking an image as to how beautiful this estate is. So as they walked across the lawn towards the river, Elizabeth turned back to look again. Yep. She's probably like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. But her aunt and uncle stopped also. Yeah. So her aunt and uncle stopped also. They both stopped. They looked again. And while the former was conjecturing as to the date of the building, okay, so hold on. So Elizabeth turned back to look again. Her uncle and aunt stopped also. And while the former, so I'm assuming that's the uncle, was hypothesizing, conjecturing as to the date of the building, when it was probably created, when it was established, which is what I would be thinking, right? I'm all for stone buildings, please. That's why I'm like, guys, this whole journey has taken me on some crazy places. It would be incredible. And if we ever get there, because according to the book, you got to have some dreams, but then, the dream comes and then you got to work on something new, right? But it would be crazy to have the opportunity to go to these places. Like I would be beside myself if I could see like what Brighton looks like now and go to, Cheapside area or London. And obviously, I would take you guys along with me with videos and everything because we're in this together, guys. But like, I mean, that would be crazy. Yeah. There's so much history. I'm seeing that there's so much history here. But let's continue going, right? So let's see, where were we? Ah, yes. So the former was conjecturing as to the date of the building, and the owner of it himself suddenly came forward from the road which led behind it to the stables. Mm-hmm. Jane Austen, I knew you were going to do something like this. Surprise! I came here a day earlier. Just a coincidence. I mean, clearly it was a coincidence. How would he have known? Unless he was in the trees, in the forest the whole time. For weeks. He's like, maybe Elizabeth will come to Pemberley. But the owner of it himself suddenly came forward from the road. Guys. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Cute. Okay, so here it is. Let's see. So conjecturing as to the date. So that's going to be there's Mr. and Mrs. Gardner, and there's Elizabeth. She's turning back to look at the house, and somebody is coming up. I want to scream, but I cannot. But let's keep it going. They were within 20 yards of each other. And so abrupt was his appearance that it was impossible to avoid his sight. I mean, what? What? They're talking about, the Gardners, we love them. We love them, but screw them. Screw them right now, honestly, because we are talking about Elizabeth and Darcy. I believe they were within 20 yards of each other. Elizabeth and Darcy. Yeah, that it was impossible to avoid his sight. They locked eyes. This is Jane Austen's way of saying they locked eyes, guys. Yeah, their eyes instantly met, and the cheeks of each were overspread with the deepest blush, guys. I'm melting. Guys, we're not in the 40s anymore. We're like at 150. Okay, we have 30 degrees left, and I don't know what. Okay. He absolutely started, but for a moment seemed immovable from surprise, because he can't believe it probably either. But shortly recovering himself, as Darcy would, advanced towards the party and spoke to Elizabeth, if not in terms of perfect composure, at least of perfect civility. So, yeah, he wasn't perfectly composed, guys. Clearly he's going red. He's going red. He's embarrassed, I would say, maybe, but I think for him it's more of he still loves her, and he's like now in front of the love of his life. Of course you're going to get red, and of course you're going to, be not composed. But he still is respectable, and he will be the perfect civilious, if that's a word, but just have a perfect civility as a gentleman should. Guys, okay, okay, we're gonna turn the page, but Kiki's getting a little red too. Oof, let's keep it going. Now, she had instinctively turned away. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of history, and probably the gardeners are like, "What the heck are you guys doing? What the heck? What the helly?" So she had instinctively turned away. Can't look at him. They locked eyes, and immediately she's like, "Yeah, no." But stopping on his approach, received his compliments with an embarrassment impossible to be overcome. Gosh. So, stopping on his approach, yeah, he's being very civil, complimenting her, and I mean, just complete embarrassment. Complete embarrassment that was impossible to overcome. I mean, she is like thrown over the ledge, guys. She might black out. Yeah. And then she'll come to her senses back in the carriage, but like her soul is it's getting coming out of her, guys. Whew. Let's see. So had his first appearance or his resemblance to the picture they had just been examining been insufficient to assure the other two that they now saw Mr. Darcy, the gardener's expression of surprise on beholding his master must immediately have told it. Guys! So it was true that he wasn't supposed to come, because clearly the gardener's expression, the gardener, not Mr. or Mrs. Gardner, but the actual gardener's expression was of surprise. So he's even like, "What are you doing here?" on beholding his master. But now this part, had his first appearance or his resemblance to the picture that they had just been examining been insufficient to assure the other two that they now saw Mr. Darcy. So maybe if they saw the picture, because it was maybe some years ago, that they couldn't put the pieces together that this is the man in the painting. For sure, the gardener's surprise would tell them that this is the Mr. Darcy. So even, I mean, everybody around the table here, everybody is just shocked that the man of the house, the landlord, the brother, the boss, the the almost fiance is in the building tonight. Whew. But let's keep it going, shall we? Now they stood a little aloof while he was talking to their niece. Yeah, so because once again, they don't know anything that happened between them. So they stood a little aloof, more like reserved, I guess, while he was talking to their niece, who, astonished and confused, and they're probably like, "Girl, what are you doing? What are you doing?" Astonished and confused, scarcely dared lift her eyes to his face. She would just explode. She's probably looking down. He's trying to talk, he's talking to her, but yeah, she's just too red. She's a tomato, guys. And knew not what answer she returned to his civil inquiries after her family. Amazed at the alteration of his manner since they last parted, every sentence that he uttered was increasing her embarrassment. Yeah, the alteration of his manner since they last parted was they were both heated when everything that went down, talking about family obligations and other obligations and all that at the proposal, and how basically your family is crazy, but I'm okay with kind of letting that slide, even though I really don't want to. But all that was heated manner. And now there's a completely different manner that he's speaking to her about. And she's amazed at the alteration of his manner since they last parted. And maybe this even, because since they last parted was clearly when he gave the letter. From then, like we talked about, guys, I mean, he probably didn't sleep at all. So he might have even looked haggard given the letter. So maybe that also as well. The whole thing, the whole letter proposal thing was just, he was just not on his game, guys. And now it's amazement how he changed. Okay. Every sentence that he uttered was increasing her embarrassment. Yeah. And every idea of the impropriety of her being found there recurring to her mind. The few minutes in which they continued together were some of the most uncomfortable in her life. Yeah. Because Elizabeth prides herself on being able to talk to people, understanding people, laugh with people. This is not in her character to have this affection and this, kind of shying away from him for so long. She usually can bounce right back. Clearly not, guys. Clearly not. And yeah, every idea of the impropriety of her being found there was just going to her mind. Like, why am I even here? Well, how am I here? This is crazy. This is a dream. This is a nightmare maybe for her. I don't even know. But let's continue going. Yeah. Nor did he seem much more at ease. Yeah, inside he is not, he's probably, feeling some type of way. His heart is probably racing. He's still talking to, maybe, if he hasn't gotten over her, the love of his life still. So he didn't seem much more at ease, but he's trying to keep it together because that's who Darcy is. When he spoke, his accent had none of its usual sedateness. So, yeah, some inflection in the tone there that usually isn't like that. And he repeated his inquiries as to the time of her having left Longbourn and of her stay in Derbyshire so often and in so hurried a way as plainly spoke the distraction of his thoughts. Yo, this dude is scatterbrained. He's like, so, when did you leave Longbourn? When did you leave Longbourn? How long you stay in Derbyshire? When did you leave Longbourn again? Yeah. He can't keep it together, guys. He cannot keep it together. And at length, every idea seemed to fail him. Yeah. And after standing a few moments without saying a word, he suddenly recollected himself and took leave. So he's asking questions. All of a sudden, he's short-circuited. And then he's like, bye. He recollected himself and he just left. What an embarrassment, guys. What an absolute embarrassment. Okay. Now the others then joined her. So this has to be Mr. and Mrs. Gardiner joining Elizabeth and expressed their admiration of his figure. So they might not see anything wrong with this. But Elizabeth heard not a word and, wholly engrossed by her own feelings, followed them in silence. So people are talking outside. She completely blocked them out, and she is wholly engrossed into what is going on with her feelings, and she's going to follow those feelings. So let's see. What are those feelings? Jane Austen, tell me. She was overpowered by shame and vexation. Maybe vexation towards herself, right? Shame. She is ashamed of herself, maybe of saying no in the first place. Maybe talking about him in a bad light, right? And agitated about herself and how she went around with this whole situation. Okay. So, yeah, her coming there was the most unfortunate. Like, she didn't want to be here, guys. She did not want to be here. The most ill-judged thing in the world. Yeah, one day's grace, guys. How strange must it appear to him? Okay, right? Why are you coming here? She doesn't really know what was the idea of going to Pemberley. Maybe she thinks that maybe he's going to take it as like, oh, she was trying to find me. I don't know. But strange. In what a disgraceful light must it not strike so vain a man? It might seem as if she had purposely thrown herself in his way again. Yeah, that's what we were just saying, guys, right? Because he doesn't really know the whole backstory on this. Oh, why did she come? Or why did he thus come a day before he was expected? Now that we don't know, right? He was supposed to come the next day, but he came the day before. Maybe to check on Georgiana's room that he's making for Georgiana? I don't know. But interesting. Let's continue on. Had they been only 10 minutes sooner. Isn't it funny how this life works like that, guys? They should have been beyond the reach of his discrimination. They would have been in the carriage and gone. For it was plain that he was that moment arrived, that moment alighted from his horse or his carriage. They just need 10 minutes. 10 minutes before, and it would have been in the clear. But life doesn't work out like that, guys. She blushed again and again over the perverseness of the meeting. I mean, this is just strange. Everything, the stars had to be aligned for this to happen. He was supposed to come the next day. He came today. 10 minutes. They could have finished up 10 minutes. Well, you know what was the 10 minutes, Lizzie? You could have left the painting 10 minutes earlier. Okay? So joke's on you. Joke's on you. You were staring at that painting for who knows how long. And 10 minutes just got away from you, girl. Sorry, what can I say? And his behavior so strikingly altered. Yeah, I mean, super flustered. She saw it. Especially asking the questions over and over and over again, then just like leaving like that? Yeah, no. What could it mean? Lizzie, what do you think it means? What do you think it means for him? He's not over it. He's not over you. That's what I'm thinking. But let's continue on. That he should even speak to her was amazing. At the end, he did accept the I guess, rejection of the proposal. But he really does wish her well, and especially it was seen in the letter. So, Lizzie, you could see it. Come on. So, yeah, that he should even speak to her was amazing. But to speak with such civility, to inquire after her family, yes, that's right. Because that was one of the objections. Because somebody who, he laid it all on the table, guys. But he said his objections with the family, but got over that, and that's why he gave the proposal. But somebody who wasn't as kind-hearted would not be asking about the family, especially when you made fun of them. And then you're going to ask about, hey, how'd the family doing? How's the fam, huh? Good? But, yeah. That just speaks, once again, to his character, I think, to even inquire after her family, even when anything else that went down. So he truly does mean well. Well, let's keep it going. Now, never in her life had she seen his manners so little dignified. I mean, he was super startled. Never had he spoken with such gentleness as on this unexpected meeting. From what we've seen, guys, I've never seen it either. What a contrast did it offer to his last address in Rosings Park when he put his letter into her hand. Yeah, what a contrast. I mean, he was purely disheveled back then. Probably looked haggard, right? And now, I'm sure he looks better. But as soon as he saw Elizabeth, he lost everything inside. Civilities was still intact, but he just could not keep it together. And that's a huge contrast. She knew not what to think or how to account for it. Yeah, she could either go both ways, Is he feeling this way because he still likes me? Which I think, yeah. Is he feeling this way because he's just embarrassed by the whole situation that you rejected me? I could also see that as well. But let's see. Now they had now entered a beautiful walk on the side of the water. Thank you. We're back to landscape talk. We need it, guys. We need it. Now they had now entered a beautiful walk by the side of the river, and every step was bringing forward a nobler fall of ground, or a finer reach of the woods to which they were approaching. Yes, we are back in the landscape, guys. And once again, it is beautiful, the most beautiful as ever. Pemberley Park is just absolutely gorgeous. But it was some time before Elizabeth was sensible of any of it. Why? Because she blacked out, guys. She blacked out, and as she's getting farther and farther away from Pemberley, her soul has finally come back. And she's like, oh. And though she answered mechanically to the repeated appeals of her uncle and aunt, and seemed to direct her eyes to such objects as they pointed out, she distinguished no part of the scene. She is clearly, once again, back up in her mind, guys. So they are just going back, Elizabeth and the gardeners, and even here, she's just on autopilot. She's answering mechanically to whatever Mr. and Mrs. Gardner are saying to her. And she seemed to direct her eyes to the objects that they're pointing out, because they're outside pointing out everything. But she's not here, guys. Her thoughts were all fixed on that one spot of Pemberley House, whichever it might be, where Mr. Darcy then was. She cannot get that spot out of her mind, guys. Ooh. Oh boy. So just like she couldn't get that painting out of her mind and she kept staring at it, now she can't get that thought, that one fixed moment out of her mind at Pemberley House. Let's keep it going. Now she longed to know what at that moment was passing in his mind. Yeah, you can make an estimated guess, but he's talking that way, he's fumbling all over. Well, he's being still very, he has the best civility, but, he keeps asking the same questions again. He's not composed either. But she wants to know what is going through his mind, in what manner he thought of her, and whether, in defiance of everything, she was still dear to him. Lizzie, what are we doing? What are we doing? She wants to know, does he still think of me like he used to think of me? I would say yeah. Perhaps he had been civil only because he felt himself at ease. Yet there had been that in his voice which was not like ease. Yeah, the accent was not the same accent that he had. His intonations were all over the place, and that kind of speaks that he's nervous, right? I would say. So she's clocking all that in. Whether he had felt more of pain or of pleasure in seeing her, she could not tell, but he certainly had not seen her with composure, and that is for sure true. Do I see pain? Pain, I think he would have first off, he probably would have turned white and not red. But maybe he would have made it so quick. If he was in pain, he would not have been asking about the family, and maybe he would have just left. But then again, it is Mr. Darcy, and he's going to be using his civilities, formality reasons. So maybe that was just a formality thing. But maybe he still really likes her, or loves her at least. I don't know. But let's continue on. Now, at length, however, the remarks of her companions on her absence of mind roused her. So they even know. Mr. and Mrs. Gardner is like, "You okay, girl? Lizzie, what's going on? Well, are you okay?" And that's when she immediately woke up. She's like, "What?" And she felt the necessity of appearing more like herself. Yeah. And the best part of this is appearing more like herself. Not that she is like herself or that she is herself, but she's trying to put on the front that she is. Okay. Now they entered the woods. So I'm assuming they're in the carriage now. They're gone. They're gone, guys. So they're entering the woods and bidding adieu to the river for a while, ascended some of the higher grounds. So they're going up. So in the beginning we were dipping down, going up. So we're ascending some of the higher grounds, whence, in spots where the opening of the trees gave the eye power to wander. And that was the beginning of the chapter here, where there was like a lot of forests, and then there was the opening, and then there was Pemberley House. So kind of same thing here, in spots where the opening of the trees gave the eyes power to wander, because you could see beyond the trees, where many charming views of the valleys, the opposite hills, with the long range of woods overspreading many, and occasionally part of the stream. So we're going back to how beautiful Pemberley Park really is. It's beautiful. You can't really say anything else about it. It's gorgeous. It's incredible. But let's see. Mr. Gardner expressed a wish of going round the whole park, but feared it might be beyond a walk. Oh, so they're not. Okay, so they're not in the carriage. They're still walking back. Okay, all right. So he feared that maybe it would be beyond a walk. And with a triumphant smile, they were told that it was 10 miles round. So that's a lot. That's a lot of property. Whew. But yeah, I mean, they're going. Which I don't think that they're walking. I think that they're in the carriage, because now they're entering the woods. You would have to be walking quite a lot. So, but okay, here we go. Let's keep it going. Now, it settled the matter. We are not walking around the park. And they pursued the accustomed circuit. So, I'm keep going back and forth and back and forth. Why wouldn't they just kind of leave? If they were in the carriage, they would be leaving. So I think maybe they are walking. And that kind of makes sense, because Mr. Gardner was like, hey, let's walk the whole thing. And they're like, they found out that it was 10 miles. So no, we're going to walk this accustomed circuit instead, is what I think. Now, which brought them, again, after some time, in a descent among hanging woods to the edge of the water and one of its narrowest parts. Okay? So we're by the water. We're at the narrowest parts now. They crossed it by a simple bridge, in character with the general air of the scene. Oh, this is just so beautiful. It was a spot less adorned than any they had yet visited. So it's like a simple stream, simple little bridge, cute, fairy tale-ish, old world-ish, cute. And the valley, here, contracted into a glen, allowed room only for the stream and a narrow walk amidst the rough coppice wood which bordered it. So just it's a lot of water, from what I'm guessing. It's a lot of forest and a lot of water. And it seems like there's a lot of water-esque in this novel. Like, we went to the lakes. Brighton is a lake town, right? So is Ramsgate. Now we got streams and lakes and glens all up in Pemberley, right? So just kind of tracking it. But still, such a beautiful landscape property. So let's just keep it going. Now, Elizabeth longed to explore its windings. Right, where's the path going to lead? I don't know. But when they had crossed the bridge and perceived their distance from the house, Mrs. Gardner, who was not a great walker, not like Elizabeth, guys, could go no farther. Oh, I hope she's okay, though. I hope maybe she's just tired. But she's not a great walker. She could go no farther, and thought only of returning to the carriage as quickly as possible. So we were walking, guys. Okay. Her niece was, therefore, obliged to submit. So if Mrs. Gardner doesn't want to walk anymore, yeah, okay. Elizabeth too. And they took their way towards the house on the opposite side of the river, in the nearest direction. That makes sense, right? Because you just want to get to the carriage. She doesn't want to be walking anymore, Mrs. Gardner, so we're just going to go the quickest way back to the carriage. But their progress was slow, for Mr. Gardner, though seldom able to indulge the taste, was very fond of fishing, and was so much engaged in watching the occasional appearance of some trout in the water, and talking to the man about them, that he advanced but little. So he's distracted. Mr. Gardner is totally distracted. Very fond of fishing. That's an interesting part that we didn't know about Mr. Gardner. And though seldom able to indulge the taste, the fish, guys, the fish. But Pemberley has got fish right on the property. So this might also be kind of like status talking, that the Gardners can't indulge in fish. And we've had conversations, guys, about the fish, right? And how that's the best of the best of the best. And Pemberley has fish right on site and somebody to catch them. So incredible. So, Mr. Gardner has stopped to talk and can't really go too far because we got to wait for Mr. Gardner. But let's keep it going. Now, Willis wandering on in this slow manner, they were again surprised and Elizabeth's astonishment was quite equal to what it had been at first. By the sight of Mr. Darcy approaching them, and at no great distance, this guy is just looking for punishment. So, but that's what he's in the forest, guys. He's in the trees. He was probably watching her from afar, if I had to guess. So, yeah. He's coming close. No great distance, guys. The walk being here less sheltered than on the other side. So he could see. He could see where Elizabeth was. Allowed them to see him before they met. Elizabeth, however astonished, was at least more prepared for an interview than before, and resolved to appear and to speak with calmness if he really intended to meet them. And once again, Jane Austen at her finest resolved to appear calm. But she is not calm, guys. And by the way, this chapter has really let me kind of understand Jane Austen more. So I'm picking up on her subtleties. That's the right way to say the word. But I'm picking up on her writing style. So I'm getting it. But, I mean, he's coming back for more. And there was something that I wanted to say. And Elizabeth, was more prepared for an interview than before. So both of them, Darcy kind of was like left and probably had a few choice words with himself. He's like, bro, get it together. We're going to talk to Elizabeth. And then he comes out, he's trying to find Elizabeth. And she, because it's not the first time now, that she's more prepared for an interview, for a talk. But let's see. Now, for a few moments, indeed, she felt that he would probably strike into some other path. For a few moments. So she felt that he was just going to go somewhere else. Maybe he was out for a walk, just thinking about what happened, and wasn't looking for her. And if he saw her, he would be going another path. Now, the idea lasted while a turning in the walk concealed him from their view. So at some point, he kind of was concealed. They couldn't see him. The turning passed, he was immediately before them. That's great. That's great. So boom, hi. With a glance, she saw that he had lost none of his recent civility. Yeah, because that's who Darcy is. That's who Darcy is. And to imitate his politeness, she began, as they met, to admire the beauty of the place. Being civil, very formal-like, just talking about the beauty of Pemberley. I mean, how can you not? How can you not? But she had not got beyond the words delightful and charming when some unlucky recollections obtruded. Is it the painting? Is it the painting, Elizabeth? And she fancied that praise of Pemberley from her might be mischievously construed. Her color changed, and she said no more. Girl, just... she cannot. She cannot. I mean, the unlucky recollections. Now, if she's thinking of... Well, she's definitely thinking of the painting, right? Because she was thinking of quite a lot of time of that painting, and then that kind of transferred to Darcy himself. And guys, remember, we're at like 150 here. But another, unlucky recollection is the proposal. Now, for this, if she's thinking of the proposal, and she fancied that praise of Pemberley from her might be mischievously construed, maybe, back then, no, sorry, and by the way, there's absolutely nothing that you could do for me to say yes. Now they meet up, and she's like, you have a delightful place. You have a very charming place. This is a beautiful place. This is a very grand place. Everything is beautiful, etc., etc. And she's like, wait a minute. This is not looking right. This is not looking right. I said no to you, and now I'm like, your house is great. Everything is great. I could have been the mistress of this estate. This house is great. I could have been the mistress of this place. Yeah. But because of that, she's like, yeah, let's go red again. Her color had changed, and she said no more because she'd putting her foot in her mouth. I don't know how you could win this type of situation, but let's continue. Now, Mrs. Gardner was standing a little behind, and on her pausing, she asked her if she would do him the honor of introducing him to her friends. Now, are we asking Elizabeth? Is basically Darcy asking Elizabeth to introduce him to her friends, meaning her aunt and uncle, Mr. and Mrs. Gardner? Because I know from what I've been talking about with you guys, you can't just go up to people and be like, hey, what's up? Like Collins did to Darcy. You have to be formally introduced. So maybe because Darcy hasn't seen Mr. and Mrs. Gardner before, he has to get that formal introduction. And I guess Elizabeth would be the one to do it. I think that's what it is. And if it's not, you guys will always let me know. And thank you so much. Now, this was a stroke of civility for which she was quite unprepared. Yeah, because once again, it's the family. That was one of the big problems, right? But he was able to look past it. So she's kind of like, she's not prepared for this. And she could hardly suppress a smile at his being now seeking the acquaintance of some of those very people against whom his pride had revolted in his offer to herself. Yeah. He went off about how her family is, low on the social scale and they acting crazy and everything, and that's an objection, but I'm willing to see past it. What will be his surprise, thought she, when he knows who they are? He takes them now for people of fashion. Now, people of fashion, from what I've learned from you guys, are people that spend a lot of money to just kind of show that they are in the fashionable sense. But the Gardners are in trade, which ikes for Elizabeth's thinking purposes. And what will be his surprise when he knows who they are? Let's see, right? They're not like the Bingleys, right? That would be of fashion, even though I think the Bingleys, their father came from trade as well. And Mrs. Gardner and Mr. Gardner run a very successful trading business out in Cheapside. So let's see what happens. Now, the introduction, however, was immediately made. And as she named their relationship to herself, she stole a sly look at him to see how he bore it. Okay, so she introduced them, aunt and uncle, this is the relationship, and she looked at him to see how he would look, right, how he bore it, and was not within the expectation of his decamping as fast as he could from such disgraceful companions. Now here Jane Austen comes back in with those double negatives, right? Not without the expectation. So without the expectation, no expectation. So not would be expecting. So expecting to decamp as fast as he could from such disgraceful companions because they're in trade. Decamping, camp, set up shop. Decamp, like decompose or something, break down or something. So like removing. So leaving as fast as he could. That makes sense. So she was expecting that he was just going to hightail it out of there and be like, oh, your family, bye. But if he didn't leave, what did he do? That he was surprised by the connection was evident. Okay, we got to give it to him, right? He wasn't suspecting that. People in trade at Pemberley walked through the house. He sustained it, however, with fortitude. So with, I guess, seriousness, strength. So he's not going to waver. He still has civilities and, he's perfect decorum. So he's sustaining it. And so far from going away, turned back with them and entered into conversation with Mr. Gardner. Elizabeth could not but be pleased, could not but triumph. That's a win. Yo. Okay, he still loves her. He still loves her, and he's trying to show her, even though he's not asking again, he's not coming out for her or anything like that, but he's trying to show her, like, it's fine. That's a big thing. Huh. He's talking to Mr. Gardner like they could actually talk together and have, conversation with each other. Interesting. Interesting. And Elizabeth is just loving it. She's ba-dum-bum-bum-bum. She's loving it, guys. But let's keep it going. Now, it was consoling that he should know she had some relations for whom there was no need to blush. So is this kind of alluding towards the actual Bennet family? How the whole family, the whole immediate family, you're going to be blushing because they're just crazy town. But it's consoling that he knows that some family from hers you don't have to blush at. They're actually good people, genuine people, smart, intelligent, easy to converse with type of people. So she likes that he now knows that about her. And she listened most attentively to all that passed between them, Mr. Gardner and Darcy, and gloried in every expression, every sentence of her uncle, which marked his intelligence, his taste, or his good manners. I mean, this is a win. This is a win. Oh, I could see it. I can see it. They're just chit-chatting, and Elizabeth's like, we'll see. Now, the conversation soon turned upon fishing, and we just learned that Mr. Gardner loves fishing, even though he just can't afford the taste of it. And she heard Mr. Darcy invite him, with the greatest civility, to fish there as often as he chose. Guys, this is big ups, because if he's doing that, the family is staying connected, guys. That's what I'm seeing. The family is staying connected, right? Because if Mr. Gardner's coming, why wouldn't little Lizzie tag along? So, yeah, come fish there as often as you want to choose. While he continued in the neighborhood. Oh, while he continued in the neighborhood. Okay, that makes sense. I was thinking like, come anytime, anytime you have off from vacation, come to Pemberley. We'll be, having fun. Offering at the same time to supply him with fishing tackle and pointing out those parts of the stream where there was usually most sport. Guys, come on. This is cute. This is cute. And it seems like this is now his element. Like, this is his house. So he's going to feel the most at home in his house. This is his true character. At Netherfield Park, Rosings, he was outside of his element. Maybe he's just an introvert, guys. He's just a homebody. But this is truly who he is. Oh my gosh, guys. And Mrs. Gardner, who was walking arm in arm with Elizabeth, gave her a look expressive of her wonder. Like, what? What is going on here from everything that, they've been talking about from Darcy when Lizzie and Mrs. Gardner were chit-chatting away? Let's continue on. Now, Elizabeth said nothing, but it gratified her exceedingly. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? This is so cute, so cute. The compliment must be all for herself. Yeah, she's going to feel it a much different way than what's going on outside. Her astonishment, however, was extreme, and continually was she repeating, "Why is he so altered? From what can it proceed?" I mean, basically from maybe what I said about how this is his home. Like, this is who he truly is. These are his people, the housekeeper, the tenants, the servants. These are his peeps. So he feels at home here. And it's his house. He's going to, be kind for anybody that comes along, the gardener, right? Everybody. So from what can it proceed? It cannot be for me. It cannot be for my sake that his manners are thus softened. Right? I mean, that would be putting on a lot. Right? It can't just be because I'm here. Now all of a sudden he's acting this type of way. It can't be for me. At least she doesn't think so. My reproofs at Hunsford could not work such a change as this. It is impossible that he should still love me. Yeah, because you guys went toe-to-toe with each other at Hunsford. My reproofs, could not work such a change as this, because they didn't really leave on good terms. They left on pretty bad terms. Here's the letter. That's it. Now all of a sudden, this new guy has evolved. So she thinks that he still loves me. But from what I can see, I mean, he seems like a good dude, guys. I don't know. I mean, this is his space. This is who he truly is. And from everything that Mrs. Reynolds has said, I mean, it's all checking out. So let's see. Now, after walking some time in this way, the two ladies in front, the two gentlemen behind, on resuming their places, after descending to the brink of the river for the best inspection of some curious water plant, there chanced to be a little alteration. What little alteration are we talking about? We have such a good, cute picture. We got two women in the front, the two guys in the back. We're going to the brink of the river, so like we're going right up to it. We see some water plant. Maybe it's a cute little lily, and now a chance of a little alteration. We could either go one way or the other, guys. So what is it? It originated in Mrs. Gardiner, who, fatigued by the exercise of the morning, found Elizabeth's arm inadequate to her support. Oh, guys, Kiki's brain is like ramping up. It's giving me Jane sick at Netherfield type, gotta stay type of way. But Mrs. Gardiner, who, fatigued by the exercise of the morning, found Elizabeth's arm inadequate to her support and consequently preferred her husband's. Mr. Darcy took her place by her niece and then walked on together. Oh, okay, wait, I was wrong. I was thinking that she was so fatigued that she couldn't make it back into the carriage, that we couldn't even go home. We gotta stay at Pemberley, guys. But no, this is much more, innocent, right? Innocuous. That instead, Mrs. Gardiner just wanted to hold Mr. Gardiner's arm for support. So instead, they do the old little switcheroo. But interesting that maybe Mrs. Gardiner is trying to set it up. Maybe she's trying to set it up. But we do know that she's not a good walker. So it could very well be that she is fatigued. But because of that, Elizabeth's arm is not enough support for her. She needs hubby hubs to come and hold her up. But because of that, Mr. Darcy took her place by the niece, and they walked on together. When after a short silence, the lady first spoke. Now she wished him to know that she had been assured of his absence before she came to the place. She's like, listen, I'm not coming to try to find you and tell you I'm sorry or anything like that. I'm just saying that, I knew that you were not going to be here. Okay, so that's why I showed up. I don't want you to get any other thinkings in your thoughts up here in your brain. I'm just going to let you know that, it was assured that you weren't going to be here. And accordingly, began by observing that his arrival had been very unexpected. Yeah. For your housekeeper, she added, informed us that you would certainly not be here till tomorrow. And indeed, before we left Bakewell, we understood that you were not immediately expected in the country. Yeah, this is not what it looks like. I'm not trying to find you out. I'm not trying to come over here to say anything. I thought that you weren't even going to be here. So that's that. Let's just get it straight. What does Darcy have to say? Now, he acknowledged the truth of it all. He's not going to deny that, and said that business with his steward had occasioned his coming forward a few hours before the rest of the party with whom he had been traveling, and one of them is Georgiana. And it's interesting, I guess, because they're at two different places, that Georgiana would be coming not with Darcy. But, and we also have the rest of the party. It's got to be Bingley, guys, right from London. So he said, yeah, that's all truth. I'm just letting you know that, I had business and what had occasioned his coming forward a few hours. So I guess business was done. Everything was good. He had a couple hours on his hands. He's like, all right, I'll just get there before everybody else. So no harm, no foul. This is just how life works sometimes. Call it fate, call it whatever you want to call it a coincidence. I don't care what you call it. It's, just happened. So, so who says, okay, so then he comes in and he says, They will join me earlier tomorrow, he continued, and among them are some who will claim an acquaintance with you. Mr. Bingley and his sisters. So, they coming. Bingley is coming back, and Jane is not here. I don't even know what Elizabeth is gonna say, because it was Darcy's fault that broke them up. I don't know. That's a whole question for a whole nother day. But I'm so glad the sisters are coming. Okay, because the sisters are going. Well, Miss Bingley, Carolyn is going wherever Darcy's going, and Mrs. Hurst just there along for the ride. Okay, so we might have a new appearance with Bingley. We haven't seen him for a while, guys. But let's see. Elizabeth answered only by a slight bow. Like, yeah, whatever, we're leaving, so bye. Her thoughts were instantly driven back to the time when Mr. Bingley's name had been last mentioned between them. And if she might judge from his complexion, his mind was not very differently engaged. So, once again, past thoughts are coming up from both of their sides. They're not having it, guys. I mean, internally, it's a struggle for both of them, Elizabeth and Darcy. And this has to come back. Maybe, well, it says when Mr. Bingley's name had been last mentioned between them. Maybe this is the letter about what all that happened. Yeah, I told Bingley to stop seeing Jane. So, and if she might judge from his complexion, his mind was not very differently engaged. So he continues and he says, there is also one other person in the party. That's got to be Georgiana, guys. He continued after a pause. Who more particularly wishes to be known to you? Will you allow me, or do I ask too much, to introduce my sister to your acquaintance during your stay at Lambton? Yo, wait. He he was talking about Georgiana. Well, he was writing to Georgiana about Elizabeth in those letters. How else? How else would she know? Right? And there's also one other person in the party who wants to particularly get to know you. She knows about Elizabeth, guys. Yo, he was writing to her about you, Elizabeth. Wow. But, hey, you want to meet my sister during your stay at Lambton? Let's see what she says. The surprise of such an application was great indeed. Like, first off, why would your sister want to meet me? Right? Second off, why would you still want your sister to meet me after what went down? So, this is a surprise. It was too great for her to know in what manner she acceded to it. Yeah, what's the background story here? Why are we meeting? She immediately felt that whatever desire Miss Darcy might have of being acquainted with her must be the work of her brother. And without looking farther, it was satisfactory. Yeah, I mean, just at first glance, she was okay to know that why would Georgiana want to meet her? Oh, it had to have been something about the brother. But maybe something about Wickham too. I don't know. It could be about Wickham. It could be about Darcy was writing about Elizabeth to Georgiana in her letters. It could be a lot of different things. So, I wonder why too. But it was gratifying to know that his resentment had not made him think really ill of her. Lizzie! Lizzie, Lizzie! The door is closed. The door is closed. He ain't gonna ask. And, he respects that. He said he respected it. And, even in the letter, he said he's not going to dance around, he's not going to talk about it. But she's still thinking, it made him think, what was it? It was gratifying to know that his resentment had not made him think really ill of her. That maybe the door is open. I don't know. But yeah, let's keep it going. Now they now walked on in silence, each of them deep in thought. And Elizabeth was not comfortable. Yeah, that was impossible. Probably for him too. But she was flattered and pleased. His wish of introducing his sister to her was a compliment of the highest kind. He protects her sister. He protects his sister at all costs. So the idea of him saying, yeah, it's okay to chill with Lizzie, that's a huge compliment. He trusts you a lot. He respects you a lot. Now, they soon outstripped the others. So I'm assuming because Mrs. Gardner isn't walking too fast, maybe they got a little bit ahead. And let's see. And when they had reached the carriage, Mr. and Mrs. Gardner were half a quarter of a mile behind. So half a quarter. So 1/2 times 1/4 is 1/8 of a mile behind. Okay, so we still have, I'm thinking of a track. 1/4 of a mile is 1 around. So 1/2 of the quarter. Still, that's a lot of damage. You still got a lot of time there. Let's keep it going. He then asked her to walk into the house. But she declared herself not tired, and they stood together on the lawn. I mean, they're just waiting for basically the Gardners to get back to go into the carriage, I would think. At such a time, might have been said, and silence was very awkward. Yeah, and especially, with civilities and everything, awkwardness, silence and everything, you might want to keep the conversation going a little bit. But yeah, at such a time, much might have been said, and silence was very awkward. Now, she wanted to talk, but there seemed an embargo on every subject. Girl, if you want to talk, you just got to make the first little move, okay? Then the rest is going to just happen. But she wanted to talk, but there seemed an embargo on every subject. So some type of ban on every subject. She wanted to talk about, I don't know, what was going on back at Rosings. Oh, wait, the proposal and the letter. She wanted to talk about maybe Georgiana. Oh, wait, let me think about the letter and Wickham. She wanted to talk about Netherfield. Oh, wait, let me think about Bingley and Jane. I mean, guys, let's just get it going. Let's just talk, because now they're being super awkward. They both want to talk to each other, but they're just super awkward. Now, he's doing better than she, because he asked her to walk into the house, right? And because of that, maybe they could have had better talking points in the house. But she didn't want to. So now they're outside on the lawn, and we ain't saying much. And at last, she recollected, here we go, come on, Lizzie. She recollected that she had been traveling. And they talked of Matlock and Dovedale with great perseverance. Yeah, basically softball type of conversation here. Basically like, how's the weather? Yet time and her aunt moved slowly, and her patience and her ideas were nearly worn out before the tete-a-tete was over. Ooh. So even the 1/8 of the mile, because Mrs. Gardner, she's just having a tough time. We just got to wait for her. But the ideas were nearly worn out. You got to get to more good substance, guys, right? So let's keep it going. Now, on Mr. and Mrs. Gardner's coming up, they were all pressed to go into the house and take some refreshment. Yeah, I'm sure Darcy, being, with greatest civility, is like, okay, we guys just walked around. Please come in. Let me get you a drink. Let me get you some refreshments. Please come into the house. It's the least I can do. But this was declined, and they parted on each side with the utmost politeness. Cute. Mr. Darcy handed the ladies into the carriage, and when it drove off, Elizabeth saw him walking slowly towards the house. This is not the ending I was thinking, guys. This was just abruptly ended. No, this can't be. This cannot be. I won't believe it. How? That's it. We were trying to talk to each other. Nope, sorry. Get your booties in the carriage and bye-bye. But the observations of her uncle and aunt now began, and each of them pronounced him to be infinitely superior to anything they had expected. Yeah, I mean, from everybody, especially Mrs. What was her name again? Mrs. Reynolds, that's right. Especially Mrs. Reynolds, doing the work. Doing the good work out there. And then seeing his actual character. And Mrs. Gardner's kind of thinking like, what? This is not the guy that we thought he was. And that's what this is saying here, that he's infinitely superior to anything they had expected. And Mr. Gardner says, He is perfectly well behaved, polite, and unassuming, said said her uncle. I mean, yeah, because he even was like, "Yo, come around, come fish. I'll give you some tackle, come fish." Okay? And Mrs. Gardner says, "Well, there is something a little stately in him, to be sure," replied her aunt, "but it is confined to his air, and is not unbecoming." Yeah, I mean, because he's prideful, that's just who Darcy is. So there is going to be a little bit of that, but it's not unbecoming of a gentleman, right? I would assume. I can now say with the housekeeper that though some people may call him proud, I have seen nothing of it. That's just not who he is. The proudness, and because he comes off as aloof. Now we're in his own home and he's chilling. He is as agreeable as can be. And that's what the Gardners see. So let's keep it going. Now, who is this? This has to be Mr. Gardner. So he says, "I was never more surprised than by his behavior to us. It was more than civil. It was really attentive." Yeah, especially the difference in the classes. "And there was no necessity for such attention. His acquaintance with Elizabeth was very trifling." Yes. Yes, yes, yes. But, at the end of the day, there was no necessity for this attention, but it seemed like he went above and beyond for being a good, I guess, owner of the house, right? To even suggest to Mr. Gardner to, "Hey, come get some fish." I mean, it's crazy. And then come into my house, come get refreshments. Very gentlemanlike. So, and his acquaintance with Elizabeth was very trifling. Now, trifling is kind of like not important, because they're seeing it from an outside perspective. They're not talking much. They have no conversation, and they're just awkward around each other. So from Mr. Gardner's perspective, he's like, I don't know, his acquaintance with Elizabeth was just it was just surface level stuff. Not even. I mean, they were just not really connecting well. But Mrs. Gardner says, "Well, to be sure, Lizzie," said her aunt, "he is not so handsome as Wickham, or rather he has not Wickham's countenance, for his features are perfectly good. But how came you to tell us that he was so disagreeable? Like, he's not as handsome as Wickham. We can't give him that. Wickham's countenance, is way better than Darcy's. But, he does have good features. He is generally a handsome guy. But why? Why'd you tell us that he was so disagreeable? Remind us again. How came you to tell us that he was so disagreeable? What was your impression of him?" Let's see. I mean, this is directly at Elizabeth. Let's see. Elizabeth excused herself as well as she could. Yeah, she's going through a lot of things. Said that she had liked him better when they met in Kent than before. First impressions aren't the right impressions. And that she had never seen him so pleasant as this morning. I mean, to be honest, she's not lying. She's not lying. This is also, she's not lying, but she's not giving all the truth, right? Kind of like Wickham. But, said that she had liked him better when they met in Kent than before. Is that true? Maybe, actually, I take that back, guys. Actually, I take that back. Where she had liked him better when they met in Kent than before. If she's not lying, she's definitely talking about after the proposal, after the letter. But definitely before, she still had that first impression of him. And that she had never seen him so pleasant as this morning. That is truth. That is truth. And Mr. Gardner comes in and says, "But perhaps he may be a little whimsical in his civilities," replied her uncle. "Your great men often are, and therefore I shall not take him at his word about fishing, as he might change his mind another day and warn me off his grounds." And this is sometimes for us guys too, where like it's kind of like, "Hey, you want to hang out? Yeah, I would love to hang out with you." And then you never talk to each other ever again. It's like, "Oh, yeah, I would love to hang out. Let's chill. Let's do this. Yeah, let's get some coffee. Oh, let's go to the movies or something." And then it never happens. And I think that's what Mr. Gardner is saying too, that maybe he's a little whimsical, in his civilities. Maybe he doesn't really mean it, and that all of a sudden now I from my generation, if you say thank you, for giving me fishing tackle and all that stuff, I'm gonna come to your house and tackle those fish. But maybe he's like, maybe I shouldn't take his word about fishing, or he might change his mind and warn me off his grounds. And Elizabeth felt that they had entirely mistaken his character, but said nothing. Yeah, because she knows more than they ever will at this point in time, that he is a man of his word. So if he says that, come over, come fishing, he means it. Well, let's keep it going. Now, Mrs. Gardner comes and says, "From what we have seen of him," continued Mrs. Gardner, "I really should not have thought that he could have behaved in so cruel a way by anybody as he would have done by poor Wickham." Yeah, basically she's saying, from what we've seen today, I can't imagine that he would behave in such a cruel way that Elizabeth told her to Wickham. He has not an ill-natured look. On the contrary, there is something pleasing about his mouth when he speaks, and there is something of dignity in his countenance that would not give one an unfavorable idea of his heart. Basically everything that we've seen today, guys, that he's been laid out on the table in his own home. Why would he act like that to Wickham? Elizabeth knows why, but she ain't gonna say anything. That's maybe not her thing to tell. She told Jane, but Jane is not Mrs. Gardner. Maybe she might, maybe not, I don't know, but let's see. But that's what Mrs. Gardner is saying. Like, how could he do Wickham that bad? There's dignity in his face, in his countenance. That would not give one an unfavorable idea of his heart, where his heart's at. But, to be sure, the good lady who showed us the house did give him a most flaming character. Yeah, she was doing the work, guys. Mrs. Reynolds needs a clap. Because she knows Darcy. So she wasn't lying. Why would she lie? She's been with them through the decades. I could hardly help laughing aloud sometimes, but he is a liberal master, I suppose, and that, in the eye of a servant, comprehends every virtue. Yeah, just as what we've been saying, guys, that recommendation and those commendations from Mrs. Reynolds really solidified it for me as to what his true character is. And Elizabeth also saw that as well, and even Mrs. Gardner has been seeing that. So Mrs. Reynolds, she needs an award, guys. She needs an award. If you need, if you need some damage control, you call up Mrs. Reynolds, and she will change what people think of you in like 2 seconds. All right? But let us continue. Now, Elizabeth here felt herself called on to say something in vindication of his behavior to Wickham, as to maybe why to vindicate him of his behavior to Wickham, maybe why he would do something. She felt herself, so it was coming, but maybe she didn't. Let's see. And therefore gave them to understand in as guarded a manner as she could that by what she had heard from his relations in Kent, his actions were capable of a very different construction. So hold on. So she's actually coming to Darcy's defense, and she actually did try to vindicate him from the behavior towards Wickham, and therefore, in a guarded a manner as she could, because, the letter is a lot. And now since we're at, 150 guys out of 180, she is not going to tell that, it was Darcy himself that told me, he actually wrote me a letter because I actually refused a proposal from him. Yeah, no. So she's not going to release anybody who said it or anything like that. A very probably generalized version that she heard from his relations in Kent. Now, does she throw out Lady Catherine de Bourgh? Does she throw out Mr. Collins or Colonel Fitzwilliam? I don't even think so. Maybe she just said, people in Kent or something like that, that his actions were capable of a very different construction. So maybe that when the time comes, he has to kind of act like that. So it still kind of says that, that his behavior towards Wickham is pretty bad, but now it's kind of justified as to why he may act like that towards Wickham in a very guarded sense, because, I mean, she's holding a lot of secrets. So let's continue on. And that his character was by no means so faulty, nor Wickham's so amiable, as they had been considered in Hertfordshire. Yeah, so first impressions, guys, they're not right. And Elizabeth is seeing this now 110%. That his character was by no means as faulty as she thought. And on the flip side, Wickham was so amiable as she thought. So problems are there, guys. And when she first had her first impressions in Hertfordshire. Now, in confirmation of this, she related the particulars of all the pecuniary transactions in which they had been connected, without actually naming her authority, but stating it to be such as might be relied on. Okay, so she gave the pecuniary transactions. She talked about the $1,000, and then Wickham was like, nah, I don't want to be in the parish anymore. So then they gave him $3,000, and then he came back and was like, yeah, I want to be in the parish. All the money stuff. So the 1,000 and then the 3,000 more, from what I'm assuming here. And she related all the particulars of that. Which, I mean, that kind of goes towards a little bit of Darcy's character, because I give you 1,000, okay, I give you 3,000 more. But then on the other end, Wickham just kind of took it all for mercenary reasons and just wanted to just, cash out, get the most bang for his buck with the little work that he has to do. But when she's doing this, without actually naming her authority, so she doesn't say anything about, oh, I heard this from Darcy, but she's being very general. Okay, I trust that. Let's keep it going. Now, Mrs. Gardiner was surprised and concerned, but as they were now approaching the scene of her former pleasures, every idea gave way to the charm of recollection. So we're now going back to, I believe, Lambton, right? So she's shocked, she's surprised, she's concerned, but because now she sees her childhood, or where she spent a lot of her time in Lambton, it's kind of coming back. Every idea gave way to the charm of recollection. She's now just kind of thinking back to her past self. And she was too much engaged in pointing out to her husband all the interesting spots in its environs to think of anything else. Yeah, so she's not even thinking of Darcy and Wickham anymore. Mrs. Gardiner's just going around and spotting out all the spots in the surroundings, environs, to Mr. Gardiner. Cute. She's so excited, guys. Fatigued as she has been by the morning's walk, they had no sooner dined than she set off again in quest of her former acquaintance. Yes, she wants to see her old past guys, and the evening was spent in the satisfactions of an intercourse renewed after many years' discontinuance. Like a long-lost childhood friend, right, that you finally get to sit down, converse with after all these so many years. I'm happy for her. That's cute, right? The quest of her former acquaintance, and the evening was spent just talking to the acquaintance after so many years' discontinuance. Oh, in talking, basically. Cute. Let's keep it going. Now, the occurrences of the day were too full of interest to leave Elizabeth much attention for any of these new friends. Yeah, she's not thinking about the new friends. The occurrences of the day were just too full of interest. She's at Pemberley, guys. She might be in Lambton physically, but spiritually and mentally, she's in a Pemberley Park. She's thinking about the painting. She's thinking about the original Darcy, I guess. And then what else? She's thinking about meeting up, when they met up with each other the first time. What he looked like, right? His composure versus civility. So that's all that she's thinking about. And she could do nothing but think and think with wonder of Mr. Darcy's civility, and above all, of his wishing her to be acquainted with his sister. Yes, because if he just wanted to shut it down, why would we be meeting the sister, guys? Why would we be meeting? It doesn't make any sense. It lives on, though, and I see it too. Does Elizabeth see it? I think so. I mean, I think she's getting in her head now. She's thinking, because above all, wishing her to be acquainted with his sister. If he still loved her, and he loves his sister, why, that would be the only reason why they would come together, if the dream is still alive. But Elizabeth, we're at 150 out of 180, so I don't know. I mean, this is crazy. Wow. Okay, I think this chapter completely made me change the way that I view Darcy. Not because he gave another speech, not because somebody told me he was a good man, but because I got to watch him in his natural environment, and that's a huge difference. Mrs. Reynolds' praise really got me, and I love what Austen was trying to show us there, guys. Who knows someone better than seeing them every single day for years and years? That hit me. And then Darcy himself became even more awkward than Elizabeth will ever be. I was dying. The repeated questions, the nervous conversation. The two of them are desperately trying to talk about anything other than the big elephant that's in the room. I swear, I could have felt the secondhand embarrassment. But my favorite moment has got to be the time when Elizabeth introduced the gardeners to Darcy. She was basically just waiting for Darcy to prove that her old opinion of him was right. And instead, he completely surprised her. Again, actions speak way louder than words. And I feel like that's a huge theme that was in this chapter. Darcy isn't trying to convince Elizabeth that he's changed. He's simply just behaving the way that he is in his own natural environment. Little by little, Elizabeth is seeing it, guys. All right, current standings. Elizabeth is officially defending Darcy to other people. Darcy is somehow confident enough to own Pemberley, but awkward enough to not even know how to have a conversation, guys. Mrs. Gardiner is the MVP of the chapter for bringing Elizabeth, basically, to Pemberley. You go, girl. Mr. Gardiner just wants to fish a little bit. And Mrs. Reynolds deserves an absolute award for completely changing Elizabeth's whole view on Darcy without even knowing what she was doing. All right, so you guys know the drill by now. Let's get some water in, your drink of choice, whatever it is, and when you are ready, I shall see you for chapter 44? My goodness, let's do this. Kiki?